Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I am Sherrilyn and I am so glad you found me. If you're not back here new, I've been doing this for 5 years. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you for joining me every single upload. I love and I appreciate you so much. Okay, let's just get right into it. Today we are talking about one of the most unbelievable stories of survival I feel like you are ever gonna hear. I mean, like, I know it's like the flair, like, oh, it's like you're ever gonna hear, but like seriously, it's so, I don't know, like miraculous, I guess, like to hear people, it is miraculous. It's a miracle, like to hear people tell their stories of survival. And this woman we are going to talk about today, Kelly, holy, I don't know if I could love another human more. And what she's done with her platform and her story. Anyways, we're going to get it all into it. Before we do though, I have a quick message for you. I want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor today, Plea. You guys know I'm always looking for a new game to just like escape into, especially at the end of long days. And thanks to Plea, all that game time can actually go towards real life rewards. I think this is so cool. Plea is a loyalty app for mobile game lovers that lets you earn points just by playing games on your phone. Whether you want to use that towards some Amazon purchases, like moi, sounds really good, or maybe your daily coffee or even Spotify subscription, Plea has got you. They have a massive library. There's puzzle games, card games, strategy, word games, literally something for everybody. I love finding brain games and I like finding like obscure brain games. So I gravitated to Block, Puzzle Blitz, and Cube Blast. Loving Cube Blast because it's one of those ones where you're like, oh, duh, this is fine. And I was challenged. So as much as that sometimes is frustrating, I like being challenged, especially with a little brain game. If that's not your thing though, like I said, they literally have something for everybody. The more you play, the more points you earn, and then you cash those in for gift cards, like I said, for places like Amazon, Walmart, Xbox, PlayStation, you name it. Just head on over to missplay.com/Sherrilyn, or you can also click the link in my description or scan the QR code on the screen to download Plea for free, and then use my code Sherrilyn to get 200 bonus points. That's missplay.com/Sherrilyn, or scan the QR code, click the link in my description, and use code Sherrilyn for 200 bonus points, which is awesome because that's just going towards your rewards. It's all great. Love it. Love you. Thank you, Plea, for sponsoring today's video. All right, so this is a Susie special presentation, if you will. Susie helps me with research. Everybody say hi to Susie. Susie, say hi. She saw a woman named Kelly Sutliff's story on a show called Toxic on Investigation Discovery. I believe it's a newer show. I believe it's only in like the first season. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, gently. But Kelly's story was episode 1, and it resonated with both Susie and I so much so. After watching the episode, Susie actually reached out to Kelly on TikTok and wanted to help, spread the word of her fight of survival. And also, we will at the end, like, touch on signs that Kelly wants everybody to know about, just trying to prevent what happened to her from ever happening to another person at the hands of someone they're married to and love. And like, this is not as easy as what were the red flags, because though Kelly said that in hindsight there were some signs, I feel like that can be said with literally everything. She said there was no blaring like sirens that indicated her husband, Chris, would become violent and try to kill her. One would even say that she had the, I guess, quote unquote, like necessary professional tools to even see those signs easier, which goes to show that this can truly happen to anybody. So growing up, Kelly's mom had instilled in her the belief that she's a strong, independent woman and she never needed to rely on a man. She could accomplish anything that she wanted in life on her own. And with that belief in herself and her strong will, Kelly graduated from Fairleigh Dickinson University, which is a private university, in 2005 with a Master's of Art degree in clinical counseling and psychology. She became licensed around 2006 and initially worked at the Mars County Sexual Assault Center with survivors of sexual trauma, and then she worked as a crisis counselor at a high school in Clifton, New Jersey, where she provided, support for students, families. She helped with all issues, ranging from mental health issues, suicidal ideation, drug use, self-harm, depression, anxiety, which I believe we need so much more of that in schools, like multiple providers on campuses, at schools, in schools, for students, and almost have it like as a, like a regular thing where we just like get to go and check in because those years are so crucial. But it was while she was working at the high school that she opened up her own private practice and had also done work as like an adjunct, like a part-time professor at Keene University and St. Elizabeth University, which are both in New Jersey as well. Despite things, professionally in her life going really, really well, Kelly did experience some loss. She lost both of her parents, her mother in 2013 and her father in 2017, which Kelly said kind of, realizing it later, she probably hadn't fully processed those losses, like to the extent that she needed to, because she was very driven and like focused on that. So at like 37, she's established herself in her career. She's purchased a home, rescued her dog, like the light of her life, Chester. She was driving a luxury car, had a lot of like good close friends, and at that point in her life had decided that she wanted to find a partner to share her life with. So in August 2018, Kelly matched with a guy named Chris on Bumble. Chris was 33. Chris was attractive, and she said that he did all of the quote-unquote right things. He also seemed to have a really good head on his shoulders, an admirable career. At the time that she met him, he was working for the government, but he had been a former staff sergeant with the Army prior to meeting Kelly. She describes him as intelligent, compassionate, someone who, when you're looking for someone that checks all of the boxes or your boxes, whatever Kelly's boxes that needed to be checked, Chris was checking them. She said for the first time in like whenever she could remember, like his focus was Kelly. He wanted to get to know her, focus fully on her, which at that time she said felt very refreshing because the people that she had dated prior weren't really like that. Kelly was on the Bitch is a Bad Word podcast, and she mentioned on there that after their first date, she just felt so confident and excited about things that she really thought she hit the lottery, and thanked God for every woman who had let this man go so that she could find him. Like literally thought like she was so lucky. So Kelly and Chris's relationship moved incredibly fast. She said that 3 months into the relationship, Chris moved into Kelly's home in November 2018. They were engaged on December 1st, 2018, and then in January 2019, so all of this, happening in that 3-month span, they legally got married. Eventually, they did like celebrate their marriage in like an intimate ceremony in Hawaii, and that was in April 2019. So still, again, like all of these, big events one after another. Part of Kelly's feelings of feeling like she just struck gold with her husband was further amplified when Kelly was getting progressively sicker early in their relationship. I believe this was like right after their engagement, right after their marriage. Kelly was getting really sick, and Chris was there for her. It sounded like one of those situations where they're constantly looking for answers. Kelly's going to the doctors and no one can figure out what's going on with her. She just said she was constantly fatigued. She was covered in hives sometimes and just had these chronic headaches, and nobody could figure out what was going on. Initially, Kelly said that she thought it had something to do with the trip that she had taken to Croatia in July 2018, which was shortly before she and Chris began dating. She said that when she returned from that trip, she wasn't feeling the greatest, kind of like fatigue, like she was fighting something. And initially didn't have those rashes or headaches. And then as that had progressed over the months, she just assumed that whatever, she had picked up from the trip and was like fighting off had now progressed, and like this underlying issue was like now flaring up. Eventually, doctors settled on a diagnosis of arterial, speaking, not my strong suit, vasculitis, which is a rare autoimmune disease that causes itchy, painful hives on the skin. And according to the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology, it only affects around like 0.5 per 100,000 people a year in the US. So this is what they thought was going on with Kelly. And Chris, he stood up to the plate. He dedicated his time to taking care of her. She said that she was in bed a lot and he would just cater her, make sure she was drinking water, had all of her meals, was going out grocery shopping, just basically had everything that she needed, and said to her, like, I know that I'm going to have you, at your best one day, so I am here to love you at your worst. Kelly's best friend Christina even said that when she initially met Chris sometime around September of 2018, she also admits to being enamored by him. Kelly and Christina described their relationship as pretty much like chosen family. They were the best of friends and considered each other family. They got some gossip on like how they met that I was like, oh shit. So I guess they met through a mutual friend at a boozy brunch, and then they soon figured out that the friend who had connected them and they had gone out with was sleeping with both of their boyfriends. Okay, so like Kelly and Christina each had a boyfriend, and this friend had introduced them, was sleeping with each of their boyfriends. So they ended that friendship with the mutual friend who introduced them, and then they just kept themselves, as besties for each other. So Christina says initially that everything, she agrees, everything seemed great. She was so happy for Kelly. Like, this did seem like a good guy from her. She had seen her friend with not so good guys in the past, and she was all game. However, as we know in these types of domestic violence situations, it's very common that after getting married, it usually doesn't take long for things to begin to change. And Kelly said almost immediately, Chris began making demands regarding their sex life, pushing beyond clear boundaries that Kelly had set. And she went from seeing her friends, mostly, Christina, almost on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, to once every couple of months at best. Now, hearing things as a whole, like after the fact, it's so much different, right? Because it's not like you in that moment, in that day-to-day with the hours and the days spanning, I don't know, where it's so easy to pick up on the signs once you're compiling them all together. So I think that that's always important to remember when hearing about stories like this. And when I'm looking at everything as a whole, it seems very clear to me that he is a very calculated person and still aware of the control that he's having, and still somewhat staying in good graces, not only with Kelly, but also her friends, so that there's not too many concerns. So on the show Toxic, Christina said that on December 14th, 2019, which was only 2 days before Kelly's attack, Chris had pampered Kelly and Christina. He sent them to a spa day. He had prepaid for their treatments, made sure that umbrellas were dropped off at the spa since it was raining outside, and then greeted them at home with a bottle of wine. So it's things like that where you might have questions, but then somebody like Chris is just, he was always there to make sure there's a little bit of I'm gonna settle you down too a little bit, sprinkle that in, make sure you still think that I'm a good guy. Little did they know, only 2 days after having the spa day and being pampered by him, Chris was gonna show his true colors. So early in the morning on December 16th, 2019, Kelly was woken up around 4:30 by her dog Chester to go to the bathroom. My understanding is this was something that was not usual. This was him waking up to go to the bathroom wasn't a day-to-day routine this early in the morning. So Kelly goes, lets Chester out to the bathroom. When she comes back to the bedroom, she looks at Chris and he's asleep in bed, but something about the way that he had fallen asleep with his phone on his chest just didn't feel right. And I feel if you know, you know. There's that feeling inside, that instinct, that screaming, something in you that is compelling you to do something in that moment. And for her, it was check his phone, which she said she had never done before. So she takes his phone and she takes her phone and goes into the bathroom and she opens up his Instagram DMs. And in the messages, she finds these vile, sexually explicit, degrading messages explicit photos as well, between her husband Chris and a woman that she didn't know. Also within these messages, which is equally as disturbing and unsettling, and I think that's even what Kelly has said, which was like the most disturbing almost, was that she's reading lies about herself. So he's telling other women that Kelly is an addict, she's an alcoholic, she's abusive, and that he didn't love her anymore. And like seeing that was such a, what the frick are you, like, this can't be my husband. This is like like the furthest person monster than my husband, like from my husband. Kelly said she had, that moment. I don't know if you've ever had that moment where you're just like, you're everything and you just like sinks into the pit of your stomach, where you're just like, what the heck is going on? Like, how do I not know who this person is that I love? And Kelly said that in that moment, as she's realizing, like, this doesn't even make sense, I truly do not know who I'm married to, her immediate thought while she's in this state of shock was A, to save photos of the messages, like in case he was going to delete them once he realized that she found them. And B, she thought to change the code to her safes, which had, her money, her jewelry, and her gun. Now, Kelly has stated in several interviews that at no point in that immediate realization of reading those messages and just processing everything did she think that Chris would hurt her. It was just her realization that she would have, bet her life on Chris never speaking like that, never being, like that vile or making up lies about her at all. So she didn't even think of like just changing all of those codes and to her safes was like a protection for safety things. It was just like guarding herself, if that makes sense. Next, at around like 6 a.m., while I'm sure, the anger is just like stewing, Kelly, she wakes Chris up. She pours cold water on him and starts reading his messages, like to this girl, to him. And she said like his face just dropped and all he did was just get out of bed and walked off to the bathroom without saying anything. And she said pretty much like stayed like that the remainder of the morning and early afternoon. It was just silence between them, tension, that you could cut with a knife, and nothing really was said. Kelly also mentioned that she was in the final stages of remodeling her home. So that was also the last day that the contractors were at her home to, finish the job. So it was already kind of like expecting to be a chaotic day and people were going to be like in and out anyway. So this is like, like a really uncomfortable time. Kelly said that, she made it really clear to Chris, like, I don't need this today. I don't want you in the house. She said if he was going to be there, he needed to leave her alone and she just needed to figure out like what she wanted to do moving forward. And she says that not only did he not leave her be, but he continuously like went in and out of the, washroom, wherever she was, basically every room that she was in, trying to defend himself, trying to gauge, like what her plans were. Like, are you leaving me? Can you listen to me? What's going to happen to us? And she just didn't want to hear any of it. Now, during the day, Kelly called Christina to let her know what was going on because she felt, like she needed to at least make sure somebody knew what had happened. And I cannot stress how important communicating with a trusted loved one is immediately in situations like this. Like, I think that Kelly did everything right, whether that was intentional or not, because I know that she's explained that in those like early hours, her safety was never a concern, but it, just like her natural instinct and the way that she had gone about things was exactly what like I would recommend to people is like, yes, like please like communicate with somebody that like a loved one that you do trust and have them know what's going on. So it sounds like, as the day was continuing on, Chris is getting more desperate and more erratic. And at one point, Kelly says that he comes into the bedroom and he tells her to hit him. And she's like, I'm not going to hit you. Like, what the frick are you talking about? Like, I'd rather hurt myself than hurt you. Like, that's not what this is about. So Chris takes that, leaves the room, calls Christina, Kelly's best friend, and tells her that Kelly had threatened him with her gun. Like she was going to kill him. Christina knows Kelly's not going to kill anybody. Knows this isn't true. She just talked to him. It's like, yeah, she's pissed off, but like, what the heck are you talking about? So when she gets off the phone with Chris, Christina calls Kelly to tell her that Chris, just told her like, he's telling me that you're going to kill him with your gun. So once Kelly heard that her gun was brought into the narrative, and I'm sure like seeing his capabilities of like the lies and this like double life that he was like so successfully able to live, or like, I guess like personality, like hide from her, Kelly said she knew like in that moment she had to get the gun out of the house, because while she's still not feeling like he'd lay a hand on her, she said it was like just the fact that he was lying about her gun that concerned her. So she leaves her house, takes the gun to her sister and brother-in-law's house, and while out of the house, Chris texts Kelly's contractor, thanks him for the work that he's done on the house, and basically is like, yeah, we're good now. He also sent a couple threatening messages to Kelly saying that she was going to come home to his dead body.
So the day of the attack, 12/16/2019, Chris texted my contractor right before the attack. So in July of 2019, I decided to completely do a home renovation on the inside of my house. And that started, like I said, in July. December 16th, 2019 was literally the last day of the renovations. The contractors were doing their final walkthrough. So before Chris destroyed my home, doing at least $63,000 worth of damage, because remember, that's all I could find the receipts for. He did, I'm going to assume, well over $100,000. He texted my contractor, and I'll show you the text right here. Look at the time. The time is 6:41, and he said, "Thanks for all you did on Kelly's house, Joe. Hope she loves it. Wish you nothing but success and prosperity." He then filmed himself in the mirror and then attacked me just minutes after this text. If this isn't premeditated, I don't know what is. So once again, congratulations to the Morris County Prosecutor's Office for completely dropping the ball on a premeditated monster.
Again, once you're piling all of this information after the fact, you can see that he is completely unraveling, going unhinged. Not only had he contacted the contractor, also blowing up Kelly's phone with threats, he also started contacting Christina repeatedly again, now saying that Kelly was going to unalive herself. So the first call, he's like, well, she's threatened to hurt me, and now he's saying that she's going to kill him. Kelly hears this. She rushes home, and within 5 minutes of her driveway camera capturing her arriving home, she was in the fight of her life. What's so creepy is that she later found out that, like, in this moment, Chris was filming himself in the bathroom mirror, just, I guess, like, reciting all these awful things that he thought of Kelly.
Fuck you. I loved you with everything I fucking had. And I wanted you with everything I fucking had. And all I wanted was more sex. I wanted you to fucking love me and take care of me like I deserve.
Within, I would say, like seconds, minutes of Kelly entering her home, she was gruesomely attacked. Obviously, trigger warning here. I'm not going to go like into like graphic detail, but it's upsetting to just like hear about like what another person endures in these situations, or it did endure in a situation like this. So Kelly said that she walked in the house and immediately sees Chris standing naked. He's covered in blood, holding a military knife that he had cut himself with. She then said he just started screaming at her, going ballistic, and attacked her. And for 45 minutes, Chris assaulted Kelly. He strangled her over 3 times, put her head through a wall, slammed her against her nightstand, attempted to force her to swallow a bottle of Xanax, and destroyed her home. While he was screaming at her, was saying, "You're going to watch me destroy your house, and then I'm going to kill you." Kelly did attempt to call 911 several times during her attack, and she said every time she tried to call for help, Chris would take the phone from her and toss it away. However, one of those calls did connect, and Chris got a hold of the phone and saw like that it was connected and told the operator that everything was fine. The operator didn't believe him and traced the address before dispatching the police.
911, where's your emergency? the address?
Everything's okay. Sorry.
Okay. Well,
Hi, you've reached Kelly. I'm unable to get to the phone right now, but please leave your name. No.
Thankfully, the operator didn't believe him and traced the address and dispatched police. For Kelly, though, she doesn't know this, and it's after the third time that he has strangled her and she's blacked out, and she comes to and sees that, you know, her whole house is virtually just like destroyed. I'm like, I don't know what we'll have the pictures on here. It's demolished. She knows, based on what he's also said to her after destroying the entire house, that if she wants to survive, she needs to get the frick out of this house. But this angel of a woman also had the wherewithal to know that she would be risking her dog Chester's life if she tried to make him run with her. So while Chris is distracted, she finds Chester and encourages him to go into the basement, and she shuts the door and leaves him there and runs out the front door over to a neighbor's house across the street. Once the neighbor opens the door and sees Kelly and she's saying what's going on, they also call the police. And Kelly said during this time, she's standing at the neighbor's house and she looks into her house from their foyer and could see Chris smearing his blood all over the bay windows. She's like, what the heck is going on? And then starts heading towards the basement door. She says that she made a split-second decision to go back for her dog because she knew Chester was there, saying, fully aware of the danger in that moment, but I'm doing it for my babies, and when it comes to my baby, I get it. Or my baby, and when it comes to my babies, I get it. So Kelly, she books it back to her house. When she gets inside, she saw that the basement door was halfway open, and Chester, I want to say, by the grace of God, he's sitting outside of it and he's alive. And Chris he's in down in the basement. So she slams the basement door, hears Chris screaming from the other side, and says all of a sudden she looks to her right and she sees police standing there, and she just starts screaming, "Please help me."
Get on. Get down on the ground. Down on your knees. Get on your knees. There you go. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear. Shut our chair. Look, I'm just very pissed off. We know this is right. And that was fun. And then the tourniquet. And then tourniquet. Here. Relax, buddy.
So you'd have the ambulance come in, you need a second ambulance, and ALS for find the tourniquet.
So the police officers had arrived around 7:52 p.m., which was only 7 minutes after Kelly had first escaped her home. And they, usher Kelly to safety and then find Chris halfway up the basement stairs, still naked, still carrying this knife. One of the officers' statements said that Chris was covered in blood, and he was just kind of muttering incoherently. He was on a rant about how, he was in the war, he had killed people, and didn't really care what the police had to say. He wasn't following any of their demands. Eventually, he was handcuffed and taken to the VA hospital for treatments of his injuries that he inflicted on himself. And then after he was treated, he was charged with aggravated assault by strangulation, criminal mischief, and possession of a deadly weapon, but was able to walk out of jail the same day due to a law in New Jersey that eliminates bail for first-time offenders. And if that's, infuriating to hear, because let's be real, this was an attempted murder, it gets worse. So because he's free to roam around, for the next 4 years, Kelly's life was hell. She endured stalking, creepy veiled threats of basically I know you know that I'm here, but no one else is going to know, but you're going to know. And, that's really, he's a freaking creepazoid, and made it very clear that he was such a creepazoid. Now, starting with just a couple days after the attack, Chris was able to call Kelly from the VA hospital, and she said that he just left this completely nonchalant voicemail, which send chills up your spine thinking about. After all of that, and it was just so call me back. And then when she returned to the house, she's recording all of the destruction that this monster of a man left behind. Destruction, which I think totaled over or around $100,000 of damage to her home, which is so heartbreaking when you think of that whole story, of her getting her house and doing all of this remodeling, and there's just something so special about making something your own, and then somebody that you went from an hour ago thinking that this person was your everything to demolishing everything that you love. Just wild to think about it like that. While she's there at the house, she finds his phone. His phone is still there. It was left on the coffee table. And, curious as to what else was in there, because at this point she had only seen like those messages. She goes through the phone again. And on this man's phone are some of the creepiest pictures and videos I think somebody could ever find on their loved one's phone. I'm telling you, I do like pit in your stomach, probably just vomit everywhere. What in the actual fork is wrong with people? Okay, so Kelly found videos of her husband Chris with her while she was asleep. These were not sweet, innocent photos of him, like catching her looking like adorable while she's sleeping. These are videos of him pleasuring himself to her while she's asleep, and photos of him like smiling at the camera or like kissing her while she is passed the F out. And Kelly describes seeing herself in these videos and photos like as unsettling, because it wasn't just like normal sleep, like your partner's taking like, oh, you look so cute. Like, no, it wasn't that. She said she looked knocked out. She looked like she was fully incapacitated, knocked out. And she said it was seeing these images that triggered a memory that she had previously believed was just like a nightmare, but now was like, oh my God, that was real. Okay. So she said that early in their marriage, she woke up one night and Chris was inside of her. She jumps out of bed and is like, what the F are you doing? And Chris, she said, like just kind of looked shocked and just insisted that he believed she was awake. And that was kind of it. She says, now looking at everything, putting the pieces together, seeing these videos, can you imagine seeing that on your husband's phone? And then it was just like, it just like triggered that memory. And she was like, oh my God, that was exactly what I thought it was. That whole motion just like started Kelly thinking about like everything. And she started thinking about the time, early in their marriage where she was sick and Chris is the one taking care of her. And she thought back to like, remembering him like bringing her water and she would doze off. And now with everything laid out in front of her, she's like, oh, okay, so you were purposefully drugging me and assaulting me in my sleep. On top of that, she also found that Chris had a list like in his notes app about her, and it had like everything. It had things that she liked, details about her life, things about her family. And she mentioned on one of the podcast interviews that she did that it was like he was keeping inventory. Like this was like her inventory, which I believe goes beyond just him keeping notes, like as they're dating, getting to like know someone, being like, oh, okay, like just going to jot down that birthday so I don't forget it, or, that name so I don't have to ask about it, again. And that happened, whatever that happens. She's like, no, this was like my inventory. And it made her think that Chris was at least aware of who she was before meeting her. And that was based on comments that were made early on in their relationship about a blog that she had started. So this was, like she said, like this blog that she had used as a coping mechanism after the loss of her parents. And she had never remembered ever mentioning it to him, but he had brought it up and like knew things about her through it that like she hadn't like said. So it was like she was kind of like gaslighting herself, being like, did we have that conversation? We must have had that conversation, or why else would he know? So like now seeing this notes app with all these things about her, she's like, oh my gosh, like what was this like? Was I targeted? Having his phone, going through all of this, Kelly brings the phone to the lead investigator on her case, and she's, hoping that they can use it as evidence. However, due to how it was obtained, like by Kelly taking it, even though it was like left behind, it's like at their house, she's just taken it. And because of New Jersey laws as well, the detectives and the prosecutor's office couldn't keep the phone and said, basically if we did, anything on it would be considered fruit of the poisonous tree. So in law, the fruit of poisonous tree doctrine dictates that evidence obtained illegally is inadmissible in court, basically, like in a nutshell. So they returned the phone to Chris. They're doing what the right thing, what they need to do, okay? And then they waited for a warrant to obtain, the phone back legally. And, Kel's surprise, by the time they got the phone, it was wiped and not salvageable. Kelly still wanted to move forward with, like a formal sexual assault report. So she, even if it was going to be like hearsay, like she wanted to tell her story. So she did. And with that, the police were also able to obtain a search warrant, like I said, and they confiscated several drugs from Chris's closet. There were things like steroids. There was also some medication for like stimulating hormone production. I think like I read that like creating more sperm when a man's taking it, or not simulating. Are we in a simulation? I have contemplated this and asked my simulator controller to help me talk. Still waiting. Anyways, stimulating ovulation in women. And then they also found 2 breast cancer medications. One of them was tamoxifen and the other Mamofen 10. I think I said those right. I know someone will correct me if I didn't, though. I'm sure you're thinking, as were, the investigators and Kelly, those last 2 medications were most notable for obvious reasons of like, Chris, why do you have these breast cancer medications? And then that got worse as they looked into things, because when the investigators looked into the side effects of that medication, it correlated with or to the symptoms that Kelly was having early on in hers and Chris's relationship, where she's just thinking he's the greatest for taking care of her and she's so sick. It was, I like every one of those was like on the side effect list. Unfortunately, even though, doctors and investigators did believe that these 2 medications were the cause of those symptoms, and that it did appear that Chris had been drugging and raping Kelly, the prosecutor's office declined to press charges, citing insufficient evidence, because by the time like all of the warrants and everything had come together, there really was no, evidence to substantiate that. Like nothing at that point was left in Kelly's system to, prove like, hey, this is what was given to me to cause this. So it's circumstantial. And this was a huge gut punch, not only to Kelly, but to the detectives on her case as well, who have been interviewed and said like how disappointing it was that the prosecutor's office hadn't pursued charges for that sexual assault. I'm sure it would have been, I can't even imagine how frustrating that situation would be, not only for those investigators, but even Kelly, like who had seen with her own eyes, had even shown, the detectives her assault. And it's like they couldn't do anything because of like, the law, like the steps that have to be followed. And because of that, it actually benefited the perpetrator. Now, you'd think with like clear intentions, of the detectives wanting to charge you, like for Chris, he would back the F off. No, he kept at it. Now, I wanted to mention, this is just all alleged, but something that I thought was really interesting. I had seen some comments on Reddit from some people who alleged that they knew Chris in high school, or I think actually like all 3 of those comments said high school. Actually, no, I think one of them was like in church or something like that too. Anyways, regardless, these 3 random comments, they said they knew Chris and that he seemed like a decent guy, like shocked to have seen this. There was like quirky things. They're like, he kind of just seemed like a little bit goofy, like a little bit awkward, but he was like relatively popular, seemed like a decent guy, but did have this like air about him that he, I don't know, like seemed untouchable. Like he knew he couldn't really do anything wrong or like get in trouble. And multiple people had said that his mom very much played into that. Now, those are just the comments. I'm not saying anything. That's not verified, but I thought it was interesting that several people said that, and also kind of made sense to me why he continued stalking Kelly and attempting to intimidate her when he knew like there were eyes on him. There's search warrants. Like they're trying to build a case. You are still charged with like the other crimes as well and haven't dealt with that. And he didn't stop. So for example, after the attack, he was allowed to go to the home to like gather some of his things. And while he's there, he did things like leave letters that he'd written her out for her to find for Kelly. Kelly also said that like he was always stalking her. She would always see him drive by. For 2.5 months after the attack, she was living at a hotel and she would see him outside of the hotel that she was staying at. She said when she finally did move back home, he covered her lawn in chocolate-covered pretzels to, just let her know that he was there watching her. And despite regular patrols around her home, officers, they just never caught him in the act of like stalking or intimidating her. And so like that was, he's never able to be like caught in the act, if you will. So it was another win for on Chris's part. And then he could just continue to get them. The next was on January 17th, 2020, when Kelly was leaving her house. She said one day she's walking to her car and a police officer pulled up, not to check on her, but they were there because she had been reported by Chris about her gun, and they came to confiscate her gun, like her only sense of protection. Now, while I was checking things out on Reddit, as one does, I did see Kelly actually was in a Reddit thread that was talking about her episode and answering questions, just kind of like clearing things up and thanking people for their support. Like, honestly, this woman is absolutely amazing. But there was one thing, so I guess on the episode of Toxic, Kelly's like going through this day and like what had happened. And she talks about hearing this bell noise and hearing Chris. And it was like a little bit confusing. So I just wanted to go through what this comment said because Kelly clears things up. So this comment says, just finished watching this. I was confused when Kelly was describing the day when the police came to confiscate her gun. And she said she was locking her door and heard a bell noise. They show the video and there is a noise and she goes, Chris. Then the police pull up. She didn't elaborate on what the bell noise was. Does anyone know? So it's actually Kelly who replies to that. And she says, thank you for commenting. I did explain it, but they didn't include that explanation in the show. I believe Chris was hiding in the woods right next to my house. When I initially pulled up, I literally felt him there and started talking to him. I was saying, please let this go. I give up. I know you're having my gun taken from me. I'm sorry. I won't cooperate with the state. Please don't hurt me. And then she says in brackets, they actually show clips of me talking to him in the episode at one point. When I came out of the house and the bell rang, I believe Chris was in the woods and rang the bell to let me know I was right and he was there. Then the police pulled up. When I was inside getting my gun for the police, Chris left and sat in the parking lot of the hotel I was living in. When I pulled in and got out of the car, he flicked his car lights and sped off to let me know he was there and was at the house like I suspected. Hope this answers your question. I think that is so friggin' eerie. So I think that's a really really good example to give of just like one situation. And this is like coming from Kelly to explain like when things are getting left out of an episode of like your story, just goes to show like how much she was also, like she was like dealing with on the regular, but that specifically of just like that eeriness. Like, can you just like imagine like knowing you're like, you feel it in your bones. And I don't know if this is like, I know exactly what she's talking about because I've been through that situation, but I feel like everybody has that capabilities of just being like, you just feel it. I sound crazy right now, but I'm like, Kelly, I get it, girl. And I'm so sorry because that gave me chills. It creeped me the F out to like, know, like he's there, he's watching. I know that feeling exactly. And to be like, I give up. Like, I get it. I will freaking stop this. Like, just leave me the frick alone. And then like it plays out. Then she tries to go back to the hotel and he's like there like, hey, see you later. Like I'm still in power here, which is insane because it's like he still hasn't dealt with what he did to her. Not that matters. Spoiler. This is why I'm spiraling, I think, right now, because we're getting towards the end where I'm like, I want to give you guys some closure here, but we're all just going to be fuming as soon as this episode is done. Now, even with Kelly needing to like wait for the charges to like go through for like her attack, she's also in the midst of having her divorce go through. Okay, so like there's multiple things going on to just get this monster out of her life. So even though she filed for divorce in January 2020, it wasn't finalized until October 2023. And that is because Chris he needed the power. He just refused to make this already traumatic situation even worse than it possibly could. Instead of just being like, I am so sorry. Like if he truly was like, if that was like a one-off and this wasn't who he was and he's like, I don't even know who that monster was, like you would think like, I'm so sorry. Like, yes, get away from me. I'm going to make this as easy as possible for you because I've already done enough damage. No, he couldn't do it. So initially he petitioned for half of the home. He didn't get it. Then he delayed, refiled paperwork. It's just like, it seems so obvious. It's like there's a handbook for freaking creepazoids like this. I don't know why creepazoid is my word of this, but I feel like I look at him and I'm like, you're a creepazoid, like after learning everything. Anyways, it's almost like they all just like meet together. It's like in their DNA, but it seems like they just like all went to a meeting and like just went by the same playbook. Like it's not uncommon in domestic violence cases when the abuser has no more like physical control over you, is not in like your environment to control like your every day-to-day life. It's like whatever grasp they still have on you, they just try to prolong that as long as they can. Like, so in this case, like in Kelly's case, it's like abuse through litigation. It's like when somebody uses the legal system to take power and control over their victim. So even if you've left your abuser, he or she can still cause, you know, the psychological, the emotional, financial harm by taking you to court, even taking your friends and your family to court just again and again, and prolonging things and making you continue to pay for lawyers. And often it's just like, it's like the little like tweaks that they're just, nope, I don't agree. It's ridiculous. You know exactly the game that they're playing, and this is so freaking common. Another creepy ass thing that he did, which I think really shows his character, was during a restraining order hearing, which was virtual, Chris shows up on the screen wearing his wedding suit. It's like, yeah, thanks for dressing up for court. But obviously that's intentional because he knows like Kelly obviously is going to recognize this. And I think just shows like how calculated and manipulative he is, and in my opinion continues to be.
Hey guys, in the spirit of you can't make this shit up, I wanted to pop on and explain the significance of this suit, which you probably saw was shown in the episode of Toxic that I was in, Sleeping with a Stranger. If you haven't watched it yet, it's episode 1. So yeah, just like the recycled necklace, this suit is also recycled. This is Chris's wedding suit. Now, we technically had 2 weddings. The actual real wedding was in January, and then we eloped in Hawaii in April. But this suit is the suit that Chris originally purchased for the January wedding. Now, what happened with this suit is that it was done in the wrong pattern. So when Chris picked it up, it wasn't the right suit. It wasn't the right pattern. So the tailor that custom made it had to make him another one. So he actually did not wear this suit for our wedding in April or January. However, it was intended to be the suit. Now, the interesting and honestly vulgar and disgusting thing about this suit is because it was for the wedding, it is completely embroidered inside the jacket with my name, my dead parents' names, my initials, our wedding date, all of that. And here's the fucked up thing. Chris wore this suit to the restraining order hearing. So I can remember when I put 2 and 2 together that, oh my God, he's wearing the wedding suit to our restraining order hearing. I told my lawyer called the prosecutor, and out of everything that Chris has ever done to me, this was the most appalling thing to her, that she was wearing the wedding suit. And I literally remember saying to her, like, I know you can't prosecute him on the recycled wedding suit law, but doesn't this speak volumes to who, like, I'm dealing with and you're dealing with? And, she was just appalled. So I thought I'd let you know a little bit about this suit. And by the way, he took this picture and posted it online publicly the day of the restraining order hearing, like before the restraining order, right before. And I've also included the text messages where I texted the tailor just to make sure I was right. You can see I sent him the picture. Then at the bottom, I say, hey, one quick question, I'm right in saying that this is the suit that has my parents' names embroidered in it, my name in it. And he was like, yeah, it is. So again, just another fucked up symbolic thing this diabolical predator has done.
So not only did the prosecutor's office decide not to press charges for the sexual assault, Chris was given the deal of an effing lifetime. The prosecutor's office had offered Chris several plea deals. They'd even petitioned Kelly to drop the aggravated assault by strangulation charge. And it's like, he did that 3 times. What are you talking about? So because Chris was a former Army staff sergeant, and at the time of the attack and when he had met Kelly, he was a chemical and weapons specialist for the government. He was able to retire with his pension before agreeing to a plea deal in October 2022. So he was given that time, the offer was put out there, and he was given time to retire so that he could collect his pension, and then pleaded guilty to aggravated assault by strangulation, criminal mischief, and possession of a deadly weapon. Yeah, I don't even have words. I don't even understand how that would be a law. You would think that if these charges are pending at that moment, there would be some sort of safeguard to prevent this from happening. Being you cannot cash out on a pen, or you cannot decide to retire and then receive a pension if you have pending charges. That needs to be dealt with before you are to receive a pension, or decide to retire to collect a pension. It's either retire and don't collect it, or retire and collect it once your charges are done, decided. So it gets worse. It gets worse. Yeah. I don't know how it could possibly get worse, but it does. So what was his sentence? His sentence for that? 3 years probation. And that means that he will be off of probation this year, this October. In fact, October 2025, which is an absolute slap in the face, because it's so clear that this man, he planned to murder Kelly, or try at one point, in this, whatever the hell he was freaking flying by the seat of his pants. I do not think that this would have been like a planned moment. He was obviously fucking just crashing out, and his true colors were showing left, right, and center. But I also believe that he was at one moment considering framing her for his murder when he kept calling Christina. Kelly was able to make a victim impact statement, and I think that she just pretty much put it so well, okay? Said everything that we want to say. She said, he was going to kill me, but I survived, and there will come a day when he does kill somebody, and the blood will be on the system's hands. And that is chilling. That is hair raising. That is mic dropping, because she's not wrong. People like this, it's they won't stop. And this specifically, it's what was your you did not have a punishment at all. That was a slap on the wrist for almost taking somebody's life. I get so freaking frustrated with cases like this, and men like him. Public stoning. We've gone from Jurassic Jail to the public stoning. Public stoning at Jurassic Jail. That's an exhibit. In all of these types of stories, the most asked question I see is, how is the survivor doing? And in Kelly's case particularly, I think that she has done an incredible job at taking an absolute nightmare and turning it into spreading awareness and helping others as much as she can. So after she lost her gun, which was the only thing that was making her feel safe at that time, she was looking for other ways to feel safe again in her own home. And she ended up looking into getting a protection dog. And so she came across Metro Canine Academy in Randolph, New Jersey. And she got her first protection dog named Stella. And then she got a second named Luca, who I believe was bred specifically for Kelly. And Kelly said having like her dogs, you know, her two like protection dogs that were like bred specifically for this helped her find peace again. And she knew that like her mission was to help other survivors find that, you know, similar peace, happiness, like reassurance, comfort, whatever you want to call it. And she knew that not every survivor could afford a $25,000 dog to get that, you know, sense of peace. And so she founded Kelly's Canines, Tales of Courage, which she's also partnered with Metro Canine, where she got her protection dogs from. And they breed, raise, train, and donate protection dogs to survivors of assault, as well as offer further training for those who do receive the dog. So it's not just like, you know, they're breeding the dog, gifting the dog to somebody. I believe that, like, I would assume that it would be because there would probably need to be like different needs, and it'd be like a case by case basis depending on, you know, the survivor's story and triggers. That is really cool, actually, like thinking about that, because yeah, it's like for like further training. They got to learn, right? Anyways, I'm just like thinking aloud. It just makes my nose like all tingly. I want to cry like thinking about a foundation like this, because I think this encompasses like just so much and things that we don't really like think about when it comes to a situation like this. And it does take a survivor like Kelly, who's like, this is not going to be like a victim story. This is a survivor story. And I am going to do everything in my power to also empower and make other survivors feel safe so that they can just like live their best life like I am. I'll have the foundation and other ways to follow Kelly across like various social media platforms linked in my description. She's quite active on TikTok, sharing her story and also raising, you know, awareness for just some of the signs to look for when I think like, you know, like the quote unquote typical red flags aren't necessarily there. Some of them I did want to touch on that Kelly has talked about, and they like totally resonated with me. One of them was that she said, you know, like his story was like all of his exes were crazy. And I think that that is something, looking back, you're able to piece for yourself like later. It's always in hindsight, right? So I do believe that, yes, there are sometimes exes could be crazy, but it's like when you're just like, oh yeah, all of them are so crazy. Because I feel like once you finally start to have like an actual like really healthy conversation with somebody, especially like someone you're dating about an ex, and it's almost like refreshing that they're like, just didn't work out. Like we kind of grew apart, still have respect, still, you know what I mean? You don't obviously want them to like be best friends and like, you know, roommates still or something like that. But I think that there's like the misconception of like the red flag being that like they could still be on like friendly terms with their ex. Whereas like when every single ex in someone's relationship or, you know, in someone's life, what am I trying to say? I don't know. I'm spiraling. I'm always spiraling. If the person you're on a date with or dating, if every one of their exes was the crazy one and they did everything right, and every single person that they've encountered in life is like, there's a problem with them, you know, it's usually an indication that like, it's like, who's the common denominator though? It's you. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. Who's excited about Taylor Swift? I don't know where that came from. Anyways, another thing was Kelly said things that moved really fast. And she's like, obviously like not putting like all the blame on him, because she also like admits that she allowed it to happen. And she said that in those situations, it's easy to get caught up in thinking like, oh, it's because it's the one. And like when you know. So like, why prolong things? Like, let's just keep moving. And that is another one where you can like look back and be like, yeah, it is like, it does seem like really sweet and endearing when you find somebody who's just like wants to spend like all of their time with you and is like anxious of being like, hey, like, so like when's the wedding planning? Like, let's get going. But no, it is healthy to like, you know, take some time. I'm not saying you got to wait like 5 years from like any level of like commitment, but you know, like the engagement, the legal wedding, or like the moving in, engagement, legal wedding, all like within 3 months. Yeah, it's quick. It's quick. And I Kelly girl, I am not pointing fingers at all, because I used to be in that mind frame too. I'd be like, I'm a relationship person and I move fast. And then because like if you move on that excitement and that all like, you know, the butterflies in those early stages, I feel like it does cloud your judgment, you know, of just like kind of like stepping back and like truly taking things in for what they are. That being said, I don't think that would have changed the situation. I don't think Kelly did anything wrong in this situation, and somebody is going to show their true colors eventually. And I feel like people like Chris, like they'll wait. You know, it's going to come out, but regardless of whether she would have moved in like a month or she would have moved in a year, I think that this guy is tactful and knows exactly what he's doing. And then I think the last thing that I would want to talk on, like, and something that I could also relate to would be like the slow isolation. So it's, you know, you go from this like over the top, really nice guy, all the friends just like being so happy for you and like loving the person that you're with, and being like, finally, you know, like you've dated so many crappy, like non-committal guys, like he's all in, couldn't be a better situation for your friend. And then, you know, like he slowly starts to switch the routine around. You go from seeing your friends on, you know, like a weekly basis. And I do think, I do want to be fair as well, that I do think that can just like change naturally when you're in a relationship, that you don't have like as much free time as you do when you're single to kind of like just go off like on a whim and just like do what you want with your friends. But I do think that there does need to be a healthy balance that does remain, and those boundaries need to be firm, that you need time with other people in your life, like with your loved ones, and so does your partner. You know, it's cute to be like, oh, we just want to spend all the time together, but you got to remember, you have to have that healthy balance. And that's also just for you to like have that moment of being able to kind of like assess things that you might not even notice in that moment is changing. But he seemed really good, and like this type of person is very good and calculated with the way that that's done, and still controlling and, you know, pulling the strings and like sprinkling, you know, a little bit of kindness into like the friends, so that he's staying in the, you know, their good graces as well. So even though Kelly's friends were seeing less and less of her, he was kind of able to not be like the bad guy in this situation, because he would do things like, you know, making up for it by like planning things like the spa day and footing the bill and having drinks ready and like covering dinner and stuff like that for them, because he didn't have to do it often, right? It's just like that probably was really easy for him to just be like, okay, yeah, like it's been a minute. Our friends are, you know, wondering. I don't want them to get mad at me and look at me. It just, I don't know. It's just so calculated. It's just so icky when you think about that. And then when everybody is able to like actually see it for what it is, it's like, why? Like what is it? Why? Especially with like when you look at this specific situation as a whole, that why is so freaking loud. Because it's like Kelly was all in, man. Like she was like the moon and sun and whatever the saying is, rise and sets in your eyes, Chris. You know, I wasn't obviously in their relationship, in their like intimate moments or whatever, but she seemed to just like be all in with him. And it's like, what was the need? What was the need to violate your wife, your partner, the love of your life like that, like drug them, you know, to violate them, rape them? It's just, I'm so disturbed. I'm so fucking disturbed, like considering all that, thinking back in this like whole picture that he only got probation. I gotta go, because I didn't forget about it. I know about it, but you know, it's like, Kelly, what do we do? Do you want to learn about Jurassic Jail? I'll tell you. Okay, because I'm looking for investors, and I think that this, you know, is a perfect opportunity. For legal purposes, that's a joke, or this is a joke. But Jurassic Jail is essentially, you know, the movie Jurassic Park, but in real life. And then instead of like everybody who's been here for like years knows the rest of it. I'm like, why do I always struggle? Is it a lamb? Is it a goat? I don't know. Instead of the lamb or the goat at the beginning getting dunked into the T-Rex little terrarium, it's not a terrarium, cage, it's people like Chris, or like serial killers or child predators, those types of people. So yeah. Anyways, I think in a nutshell, and how I should wrap this up, it's like, it's not, it's not like the encouraging words we all want to hear, but I think it's the practical ones. All right. Like, cause I feel like the longer that I do this job, I realize that we just need to be aware of everybody at all times. All right. So if your intuition is sounding off, I am telling you it's right. Okay. So do not doubt yourself. Do not gas yourself. Listen to it. And I know that that is easier said than done, but it's like the biggest thing that I think that I could also just like give as a takeaway. Cause I feel looking back on like my own situations, it's like, yeah, you did. There were many. I mean, for Kelly, I had way more red flags that I was ignoring. Like there were too many. And that was just like, I don't know what the blinders were. There were multiple blinders on. So that being said, it's like, even, I don't know. It's just like, that's what really sucks. It's like, why is it on us? Why can't people just be fucking normal? What the hell is wrong with people? Why do we have to be on guard, just like tuning into the intuition all the time to be like, is this a sign? Is this bad? Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe this is the love of my life. Am I going to just like throw it away because I have a little bit of a weird feeling about it? I don't know. This is out. I don't know how we got here. I don't know why you still come to watch the channel, but I'm thankful that you do. And I'm going to go snuggle my niece because I feel like I just need a reset right now. I hope you are able to go and do something to not spiral as well. That is very important as well. If you ever feel like, this is too heavy, I feel sick. It's okay to feel that way, but also, I don't know. Take care of your mental health as well. Okay. I do see some of that in the comments, and it actually like makes me happy when I see people be like, I haven't been here for a while, I had to take a break from true crime. I'm like, I actually love that you did that because it can be so freaking heavy and we all need to sometimes. Okay. So anyways, thank you for that. Thank you, Kelly. Everybody please go support Kelly. I'm going to have, like I said, all of her stuff linked in the description. Please, for the love of everything, somebody kindly remind me if I forget. I'm going to do my best to remember. I already have it like pasted right now, ready to go so that it's just like easy to do it. But it's me. So, sending you all the love, Kelly. If we can help in any way, if you guys are looking for a foundation to add to the list to like look into and donate to, Kelly's sounds absolutely incredible. I will also have that linked below. And thanks to Misplay, all that game time. Just head on over to misplay.com/Sherrilyn, or you can also click the link in my description or scan the QR code on the screen to download Misplay for free and then use my code Sherrilyn to get 200 bonus points. That's misplay.com/Sherrilyn, or scan the QR code, click the link in my description and use code Sherrilyn for 200 bonus points, which is awesome because that's just going towards your rewards. It's all great. Love it. Love you. Thank you, Misplay, for sponsoring today's video. That's it for me, okay? Okay. We're like, Sherrilyn, you gotta go. I know I do. All right. I love you so much. I'll see you in the next video. I will miss you terribly. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon. Bye.